You can end the music, please. Oh, for goodness sake. No! Right, screw you, shut up, enough. I want to stream. That's it. That's what I want. I want to get this done and be happy. Right. So anyway, if you guys were with, you can't see me. If you guys were with me earlier, I was just speaking about the map and basically how it functions and how it works. Now, in Dawn of War 2, one of the most important aspects that you're going to have to keep looking back at and just keep focused on is your mini-map. Now, most players will be like looking around the screen and be like, okay, micro, micro, micro. But if your map awareness isn't good, then you're not going to do well at all. So, anyway, apart from that, we're going to basically look at Dark Riku and look at what he's doing. He's playing it as the apothecary. Now, before we can even start talking about the game as itself, we have to speak about like the mechanics and heroes. But before we can get onto that, I think I'll leave that for probably a bit of another day, and instead we'll get right into it. So for this, we're just going to follow Riku and see what he does. We're going to look at his build, and I'll give a bit of explanations on why he does that. He's playing against Virgil, who's the Warlock, is the offensive hero of the Eldar army. The Warlock can be very tanky, so he can be upgraded with lots of war gear, which allows him to tank damage and support his units around him, especially with like these weird distortion shields, I think they're called, especially on the Banshees. Very, very effective. So, right, we shall start now, and we're just going to be talking about basically what Riku's doing. So immediately, Riku is going to cap this power point with his hero, and this ret point with his scouts. Now, for me, I would have usually done it the other way around, but it could be that Riku is planning to send these scouts to cap here and over here. But we're going to watch his Tactical Marine squad. Now, Tactical Marines are your tanky, for the Space Marine units, they're your tanky damage dealers. They're very durable. They're giving 1,050 hit points each. So each, 1,050 hit points overall as a squad, which means when they're fighting, they can soak up a lot of range damage. Now, the tooltip. Let me pause here. The tooltip actually isn't in the game at the moment, but Space Marines basically wear heavy armor, which means they can soak up a lot of infantry damage from enemies such as Die Avengers or Orc Shooter Boys and other Chaos Space Marines. However, their heavy armor means that they're very slow, and they take increased damage from power weapons. So when we see, once this continues, I'll basically talk about why that's important, and why why that's such a big issue for Space Marine players, and what they have to be careful about. So right now we see Virgo going triple Die Avengers, and we see Dark Riku going for a double scout. Scouts are your speedy, cheap capping units. Their speed basically means that they can get around the battlefield really quickly. They can go behind enemy lines and just basically ninja cap. Scouts taking a huge destructor there, knocking them back and taking quite a bit of health from them in that situation. And obviously now there you go. The Apothecary just activated his heal, and that's one of his unique abilities, which he basically can. He has a heal without having to purchase anything. He's a supportive commander, which means that you usually want him to be behind your army, and you don't really want him to be going into combat straight away without upgrades, unless you're positive that he'll win the engagement. Now, what most players seem to do, and what Riku's not doing actually, is having his tactical Space Marines with his hero like immediately, because I think in doing that, in sending his hero here and his scouts here, he's just wasted time by not sending them here, because then they immediately could have been capping this point, and his hero could have been here already capping with the Tactical Marines who are now over here capping this point. So that's one of the things you guys want to think about when you're sending your squads together, is by having your hero being the APO right here, okay, all white and all upgraded with that green eye, yeah man. and your tactical marine or your tanky dudes, the main people, the main squad that you're going to use for engagements with your hero as well. Okay, so in doing what he did, obviously he hasn't. That skillful use of the hill saved him from losing a model, but he could have saved it basically had he sent his scouts to camp over here. But let's see how it goes and see if he's able to force off this warlock.
Turns toward the righteous. Support structure complete.
So these scouts are using light cover. Scouts are wearing infantry armor, which means unlike tactical space marines, they'll take increased damage from small arms fire, which means scouts in a straight up battle can't beat other squads, not unless they have upgrades such as the shotgun. Excuse me, which is mainly used against mainly to be a soft melee counter. It's not a hard melee counter, but it's a soft melee counter, as unlike say setup team, which is a hard melee counter, which basically suppresses them. A soft melee counter being the shotgun, which when he upgrades, we'll speak a bit more about, will help against enemy units such as banshees. Now banshees, these guys do power melee, and you can see that by the little reticle thingamajiggy above their head, which basically shows what kind of damage they do. The apothecary isn't doing power melee because if you look closely at that fist, if I can speak this other way, if you look closely at the fist, it's not glowing. If you look at the banshees, they have a white outline around it, which basically means power melee. And we'll talk about that a bit more. Obviously I'll be releasing a bit more guides, and so things we don't cover in this replay we can cover later on. So already these tactical marines are going against two Diavengers because of the heavy armor, meaning that they're going to win in both close combat and range. But the Banshee's coming, which are going to force them off. Banshee's hard counter tactical space marines, who are mainly a range only unit. However, they do the, I think that's a wasted heal, but they do the most damage out of all the tier 1 range units in the game that aren't set up, for example. So in melee, tactical marines will be able to beat 2 Diavenger squads if both squads were melee against attacks. Now against banshees, who obviously have their power blades or power swords, they would generally lose straight away. So this warlock being dangerously low, trying to decap the map. Now immediately, just have a little closer look. Look at Wergul's map control. The map is basically like just straight out red, right? And right now, Riku's in a bad position. He has 3 power, which he spent 50 of, like getting his assault marines, and while Wergul has most of the map. But the only unfortunate thing is that Wergul has spent quite a bit of wreck on obviously his upgrades, but it shouldn't matter, right? Because he'll be putting generators down soon. He's got the map control. Now this is where Space Marines suffer in early engagements, is because they're slow. And it's scouts that basically allow them to compete for map control. But obviously if scouts are forced off the battlefield, then your early map control will suffer. And against this build in particular, scouts will suffer against this kind of build because they lose to everything that's on the field, banshees and Diavengers, in a one-on-one combat fight. So without any support or any shotguns, these banshees will be able to rip through this entire army. But we're about to see what Riku does here, which is very smart, and we're about to see him play very compact and very tight. Compact meaning that he'll group all his units together, and that's how you should play Space Marines, and I'll explain why in a few moments.
Are we to accept defeat?
So again, keeping his hero and his scouts that position, sending the scouts in behind the rest of the army. A bit of a failed grenade there. Scouts are faster than tanks, so it means they will sometimes draw ahead. And let me just quickly lower that sound effect because that almost burst my ears, and I do like my ears, so I'll try and keep those. Thank you very much. This Diavenger squad being dangerously low, obviously being forced off. Now, what was spoken about yesterday in Juwan's stream is that obviously he's losing this power node, but it doesn't matter, right? Because he's got his assault marines out, and he'll be able to cap this one back and defend it. There's no point him going back to defend that and sacrificing any of the map control that he's got. He'll be able to gain, because look at the positioning. Wergul squads are all over here, while Dark Riku is able to cap the map and decap the map up here. he'll be capping this power map back as well. We're allowing him to get some resources even if he loses this one. Now we see a spike grenade thrown there. Units, when they're doing a special attack, which is basically knockback, which you saw him do there, they can't be knocked back, or they can't be knocked over. So that assault marine model doing his knockback special attack won't be able to be thrown back. Hence why the force commander, when he does his battle cry, if you guys know about the force commander, when he does his battle cry, he can't be knocked down. Now scouts have been upgraded with their shotguns, and they are, like I said, a soft melee counter, granting them the explosive shot ability, allowing you to knock enemy units back in a wide cone. Now, there's a particular range that you guys need to be careful. There's a particular range that you guys need to be careful of. There's a particular range that you guys need to be careful of when you're trying to basically do use your knockback, which is how close you actually are. For example, okay, let me just go back into the game and I'll show you rather than coming out and you see my beautiful blackface. That's a title screen. Let's not do that. Okay. For example, at this range, if he was to use shotgun blast now, all of these models would be knocked over. If the banshees were here, the majority of the models would be knocked over. Luckily, if a model flies into another model, that model will also be knocked over. Model. However, say the banshees are where the apothecary is, and you just use your knockback, the entire squad won't be able to be knocked back unless they are fully clumped together, and instead it will just suppress them, which means your scouts will, for example, still be able to take melee damage. So there's a particular range where you have to be careful of. Here is really bad, and if you get in this position, then you might as well just retreat after using your shotgun blast to stop preventing you from losing models. Here is medium, where it's not so bad, but it's not the optimum, and here's the best. So if they're in this position, we'll see if Riku does that. Moves off instead, knocks back. So you saw he was at the medium position, but still able to knock back these models because this Banshee flew into this one, being allowed this whole squad to be knocked back. So obviously straight away those Banshees have to get out of there. They can't do anything against the hero shotgun scouts and tactical marines who are helping out here. Now assault marines forcing off these Dire Avengers, really helpful for dealing with range blobs and setup teams. Assault marines are not melee dedicated, they are range disruption, which means they will lose to Banshees in a straight up fight, even if they were to jump on them. And if Banshees are basically upgraded with that aspect, they will lose straight out. So you need to be very careful and remember that Assault Marines won't be able to beat Banshees in close combat. Don't ignore the Dawn of War 1 intro, because that's just lies. This is not fluff. So they will lose. Now, here we go, straight away these Assault Marines have to get out of there. Banshees are very fast, so you want to be careful and make sure that you are able to retreat. If you know you're not going to win engagement, retreat earlier so that you don't risk taking any losses. Setup team slings, for example, will take huge amounts of losses. A good retreat grenade, however, this was the main model. Please pause for a second, sorry about that. This was the main model that took most of the damage, meaning that if these two back models were thrown a grenade on, then they wouldn't die. Instead, the whole squad would absorb the damage. If it was thrown on him instead, then he would definitely die. And that's what's special about Dawn of War 2, is that each model has their own invisible health bar. So just be aware of that, and high level players will be able to kind of guess which model is taking the most damage and move them out of there. It's not like StarCraft, for example, where you can predetermine, because you've got the little health bars each above the heads of the squads. You can't actually check, but you just have to watch basically which model is taking most damage, which is really helpful because the bullets in Dawn of War 2 are really easy to see. So it's easy to identify which models are taking damage. For example, we'll look at this squad. That model is taking most of the damage. He's ahead, so he'll go down. This one right here, if there's a retreat in time, which he does. So luckily he was able to retreat in time. Ranged fire does reduce damage when a unit retreats, so just be aware of that when you're trying to run away from a range blob. So yeah, again, Riku playing quite compact, keeping his main army together while this scout squad is off capping, disrupting. Both teams upgraded with shotguns just so they don't have to keep running away from the Dire Avengers, which hard counter them. Destructor shot. The Warlock has been upgraded with his Merciless Witchblades, which is very, very, very effective against units like Scouts, Assault Marines, and the Apo himself, the Apothecary, who has to use energy to use his heal, and this drains energy with every strike. So what we're going to see is Riku be quite defensive. Okay, so he's going to have to think about, okay, what am I going to do against this?
We have 300 points remaining.
For some reason, he isn't really focusing, use the model unnecessarily, probably could have knocked back. Able to run out of that. Now the reason why that did knock back is because it was a single model and not a group of models. Grenades incoming, Riku's just focusing, make sure he's moving his squads all the time. Should probably come and support. Assault Marines jump in just as soon as I say that, and this unit over Virgil not really paying attention, not capping, or that's kind of a bug that happens in Dawn of War 2 when your units doesn't cap. And already, just from playing concise and grouped up, Riku has already been able to take most of the map back. Look at the map from what it was like. I mean, what was it? 3 minutes ago, completely red. It's now blue, and he's now taking up to tier 2, despite losing his early power quite quickly. And this is because Virgil squads couldn't do enough impact. This is a fast tech build, very low power build, high requisition, meaning map control would be like the main key here. However, because he wasn't able to do enough damage to Riku's economy, money baby, money. He wasn't able to do enough damage to Riku's resources. Riku is still able to cap the map, and because Riku conserved his bigger squads such as the Tactical Marines and Assault Marines, who cost a lot of requisition, 83 per model, 83 rec per model, and I think it's 90, or was it 83? 8. So 83 rec for Assault Marine and 8 power for an Assault Marine model to replace, which is very pricey. So it's allowed him to tech up just as quickly as Virgil has. So not too much happening at the moment. We can just fast forward a bit. Not too much happening. We can just moving around. Gonna try and come around the back so he can get to this point. And the reason why he's doing that, fail. The reason why he's doing it from this direction is because, first of all, he knows that this area, if he was to attack this direction, it's less of a distance. I can't even get the whole screen in, but it's less of a distance for the enemy to travel from his base, so it will be easier to defend. Whereas if he attacks from over here, look at all the stuff and the site blockers that Riku has to guard himself from a counter attack. He basically, from this area, it's a quicker retreat path back to his base from over here. He can see, it gives him sight range because he can see where Virgil is going to be sending his squads to try and deal if he tries to go for a counter bash, and he doesn't really need the squad to come over here because most of this side is blue. So the distance, so just focus on that. When you're going to go for a bash, look at the map, look at the distance from the area you're going to attack with from your enemy's base, and the distance where you're going to attack in from your base. So over here is safe because of all of this is protecting Riku's squads from a counter attack. So these scouts come in, probably should be behind the army because they're taking more damage than they need to, and they need to counter these scouts. Virgil splits his army, throws a grenade, and the reason he split his army there is so this shotgun blast didn't do so much disruption. Now the minimum range there was here. This lead model was this lead model has the health bar above its head, meaning that it won't get knocked. Okay, let me pause. Sorry. Okay, so the model with the lead model, this one, who has the health bar above its head, what this basically means is that if this model basically goes into combat first and he's in a closer range to the scouts, it won't be knocked back, even if the other squads behind it are, meaning that that model there can still get into combat with the squad and tie them up. So be wary of that if you're going against Banshees or any kind of fast melee squads such as Hormagaunts. Riku's upgrading to the bolter just to put down this warlock who hasn't got a shield, which means that he can be knocked over. And he's just going to bait out the warlock, annoy him, wait for the bolter to come out, knocking back the warlock, stopping him from capping, but he's still in range there. Going to retarget, and look, Wergel kind of being a bit cocky here, not focused. I mean, he probably should have just been like retreated or fleet-footed away just to escape this, because he's taking unnecessary damage. And Riku's basically baited. He's not retreating. He's not engaging these Divengers. He's basically acting like he's losing. But Wergel wasn't expecting the full auto attack from that bolter, and it ends up causing him to lose his hero. And then Wergel obviously gets angry and blames Relic, but it's not Relic's fault. So, onwards. Oh gosh. No! Stop that. Onwards. How are we doing for time? Excellent. And that's a little shout for me. Wergel did actually beat me in my last game against him. I was on the phone to my friend. Excuses. But yeah. So obviously now, one of the good things like this is that Wergel he's talking. He's spending more of his time talking than more of his time thinking of how we can come for a counter attack. And Dawn of War 2 is a strategy game, so it's as important to psych your enemy out as it is to defeat them on the battlefield. If you mess up their train of thought, their line of thinking, it punishes them highly. A really good grenade there from the Divengers doing plasma damage, meaning that heavy power armor wearing squads such as Assault Marines and Tactical Space Marines will take more damage from plasma weaponry. So just be careful with when you're running in against grenades. Now, I don't think that this was a really good unit choice from Wergel. I mean, look, listen, he's doing quite a bit of damage against these what are they called, scouts. But I mean, it's not going to do enough. It's not going to cause enough presence on the battlefield. There's still Assault Marines. There's still a Tactical Marine squad, and Riku hasn't brought anything yet. So Wergel is kind of lost about what he's going to do. Losing, was that the Exarch? No, he doesn't lose his Exarch. So he's lucky there. So this squad is going to become a bit of a what's the word? Nuisance for Wergel more than Riku, just because there's not much a lot they can do. Because Riku, these squads don't do a lot of damage to heavy wearing squads such as Assault Marines. Now, Banshee's decapping the point, slowing him down a bit. But in this, Riku upgraded his lead to the Sergeant, and we're about to see in this replay. We're about to see a new unit unique to the Elite mods, which is very, very, very valuable and very tough, especially against infantry bearing squads such as Divengers and Warp Slider squads, giving you a lot more options and a lot more variation. And I've just got my super codex. Codex! I couldn't stop myself. I had to do it. It was either I do it now or upload. And let's disconnect. Now it's a good shotgun throw there, and a really good heal, protecting the squad from taking much damage and healing them, preventing them from losing a member. Really well timed. And this basically leaves Wergel's base open to counterbash. But you can see Riku not being too aggressive, knows that, well, I didn't do a lot of damage to his Banshees, so they'll probably be back in the battlefield soon. But I do know that the main squads are over here. However, I'm upgraded with Stern Guards, Elite Tier 2 unit, which basically I'll do a little introduction of these guys. Sorry for keeping pausing. If you guys aren't enjoying this, just let me know, and I'll change up. But just want to basically give a little overview over this squad. They're a new squad for Dawn of War 2 Elite, and they can be upgraded from the Sergeant upgrades for, I think it's 75 rec and 30 power. I think that's the resources. I'm not entirely sure. But basically what this means is that you get entire new squads and new models for free, and if the Sergeant goes down, you don't have to repurchase him. He just basically he's just another squad member of the squad. Now, what's special about Stern Guards is that they have, I think it's 4 different ammo types. One is really effective, which is called Hellfire rounds against infantry, which does damage over time, similar to the damage from the what's he called? The Plague Champion. And if you don't know about Plague Champion, we'll go into him in the next stream. From the Plague Champion, they've got Dragon Bolt rounds, which basically negates cover completely. So even if a squad was in a building, they can just activate those rounds, and force them out of the building for free, which is just basically equivalent to a flamer. They've got Kraken rounds, which is their normal rounds, which is very effective against Chaos Space Marines and heavy rear-in squads. And perhaps most importantly, and probably one of the best aspects about these squads, is their Vengeance rounds, which you can get on a Devastator squad for an upgrade, but they get them for free, which basically is a light or soft counter to vehicles, but very, very effective when used in conjunction with Assault Marine Melter Bombs, which they actually don't have at the moment. But very, very effective, and you're about to see how effective they are as the stream goes on.
The enemy is outmaneuvering us.
So here they're using their Hellfire rounds, which you can see by the little skull, which means death, and well, screw damage over time, which means that if he's not careful, he can go down very quickly. Hellfire rounds are very effective against heroes, so that used in conjunction with the full auto ability from the Apothecary is very effective. Now, there's a reason why I also noticed about this replay is that Riku, he swapped the positioning of his squads, where normally, okay, this works for a grenade, a really good grenade here, but just unfortunately just misses. A grenade thrown there from Riku, gonna knock back these squads here. Assault Marines, I think they're gonna use a Mercer Strike, trying to protect the Apothecary from getting damage, but obviously the Banshee's very quick. Wergel activated his sprint global ability, which is going to help Banshees, who are very, very quick on retreat, chase down this Apothecary. Dark Riku using Lariman's Blessing, which is his global, allowing him to bring his Apothecary back for 125 or 175 reds, which is Valor, which is just a little red bar here, which you can see from here. So really effective. Tactical Marines using their Hellfire rounds against these Banshees, who are going to have to be very careful, despite the fact that they took damage over time, and Wergel's shields over that, but is extremely low and doesn't manage to get any losses off these Assault Marines. Apothecary is going to come up and try and support, and in all this, what Dark Riku did is completely stop the income of Wergel while he's going to try and push, or try and, okay, looks like he's going to try and cap the map back instead. Which I suppose is really smart. He does it, he's not ahead, he is losing victory points, so trying to keep his resources up, which he's floating, going for tier 2, and could get another squad just like that. And this becomes very important. Now in the late game, Eldar are notorious. Good grenade here. Okay, not a great grenade. Knocks back one of the models, but doesn't kill anyone. Kills one of his own unit models in that. But one of the things that Eldar are notorious for is their late game ability to just ignore combat and then cap the entire map. And someone's going to come in and support these Banshees, but they get forced off by the Hellfire rounds, losing their Ektarch by the power sword of the Assault Marine Sergeant, which grants the squad Mercer Strike ability. Now this squad over here just trying to harass these scouts, prevent them from capping, and we do see a Falcon, which is this transport unit. It's quite slow, but can be quite tanky. Can counter, soft counter, that's the correct word, soft counters a Razorback, which is the Space Marine transport for their army. But look, straight away we see Riku change his ammo type to, well, it was on the anti-tank one, but he looks like he's waiting for expecting some combat, and switches back again. So there we go. Now we look at that light damage, and the rear armor doing quite a bit of damage on one squad against that, which basically means that Wergel's got one more thing to worry about. Scouts in there, throwing a grenade by Wergel, poor grenade, accidentally throws out his own unit. Shotgun blast there. knockback from the submarine. So that's already three forms of knockback: one friendly fire and one helpful. So one enemy squad friendly fire. And if I had slowed that down, we'd be able to look at how Riku handled that engagement. Just keeping his positioning, kept the scouts in a good position, kept them in light cover, meaning they wouldn't take too much damage, but they could negate the Banshees and stop them from doing huge amounts of damage. Loses his John farm to these what are they called? Warp spiders. But the Predator tank, a hard counter to basically everything on the battlefield at the moment, especially this Falcon tank, which basically snipes off the Exarch. And all of this is resources that Wurgle just doesn't have. Look at his resources. 40 resources, which he's going to have to use to replace these falling Banshees. And look at the map control. Now Riku is in a really strong position. He's got the battlefield leverage, and he's also got the map control, which means that Wurgle is going to have to scramble for map control. And at this point, he's demoralized. The map is blue. He's decapping Wurgle's only remaining power victory point, and Wurgle knows that he hasn't got a counter for it in this situation. There's nothing he can really do. And from that point, from the moment that Wurgle started talking and getting really frustrated, he already started to lose because he had lost the battle of the mind, and that is really important in a RTS or strategy game, especially in 1v1. But you have to telling yourself to keep going. In most situations, if you remember, the map was completely red, and most players will be completely demoralized. But Riku, who is a very experienced player, knew that, okay, well, I know I'm losing the map control, but if I can basically win engagements and just slowly cap the map back, just keep my calm, then I know that maybe I'll be able to turn this around. And he was able to, just from a few surprises. And that is the end of the replay. So already we saw a great match there. Okay, let's just change that back. And we got to see how basically, despite the fact that Riku was behind initially, by keeping his army compact, as a Space Marine player, this is very important, keeping your army compact and blobbed, and not grouped together, well, we're basically just walking past each other like they're in a freaking on the bus or a train, for example, but keeping them in a close vicinity to each other, where you can basically for example, okay, let's explain this. Space Marines are an army that synergize. They have to have synergy. They synergize really well. They are very versatile, but they can't take any squads on by themselves, not properly. Tactical Marines can take on Die Avengers, but they get completely hard counted by Banshees. So you just have to be very careful. But if with a hero and a shotgun scout squads, they can basically prevent Banshees from stopping them. Obviously, once the Banshee gets upgraded with their Exarch, then you're going to need to be very careful. Obviously, you're going to need to use globals or some disruption to basically help you out. But that's just an example of how by keeping your units together, you can change the outcome of an engagement. So for part 2 of the stream, we're going to be looking at a second game against Orcs, and Orcs are a very early high pressure race, very good at pressuring the enemy and preventing them basically from just continuously attacking, stopping, basically preventing your opponent from basically getting comfortable and trying to cap at the map. And they do high amounts of damage, but they do have their squads are quite squishy. So squads such as Chaos, for example, who are tanky and do quite a high amount of damage, especially with Eternal War and Heretics, can basically hard counter Orcs quite easily, but depending on the hero they use. So join me for part 2 of what I name this thing, Elite Focus, lol, and I'll be right back with you. So I hope you enjoyed the part 1, so just hang on and I'll be back for part 2. So already up, and